Art supplies are the best, and they can make your creative process so much more enjoyable when you have everything you need. But they can also be a real challenge. I've been building my art supply collection for over 20 years now, and I have tried just about everything. So in this video, I'm going to give you the brutally honest truth of owning a large collection of art supplies. Whether you're thinking of expanding your own collection or just curious about the struggles, there are some problems you might not have considered and some benefits that may surprise you. So let's dive in. The more art supplies I collect, the more this first problem rears its ugly head. And trust me, it's a big one. Finding enough storage for everything is a real struggle. My workspace is overflowing with paints, brushes, papers, and all sorts of odds and ends, each one needing its own place. I first noticed this issue when I tried to reorganize my studio and realized I had art supplies in every corner of the room. Some were even expired because I hadn't touched them in years. I've had to invest in a ton of storage solutions like drawers and airtight containers, but even then, it's a constant battle to keep everything organized. If you've got a growing collection, make sure you have a solid plan for storage. Otherwise, you'll be swimming in supplies in no time. Now, I've always been a bit of a neat freak. Blame it on my dad, who had me and my siblings each clean 2 rooms of the house every single week. But let me tell you, art supplies and cleanliness don't always mix. No matter how hard I try, my workspace always seems to end up covered in paint splatters, paper scraps, and the fine dust from sanding down cradle boards and canvases. It's a mess, plain and simple. And while I've tried to accept that a creative space is naturally going to be a bit chaotic, it still drives me nuts. I've often thought if I stuck to one art medium, my surroundings would be a whole lot cleaner. And if you're anything like me, the mess might have to be something you'll need to learn to live with, or you need to get used to tidying up as you finish every single art session. Let's be real, having too many options can be overwhelming. I've got so many different supplies that sometimes I just don't know where to start. Should I use watercolor, acrylics, or maybe try out that new set of gouache paints I just bought? The endless choices can lead to decision fatigue, where you spend more time thinking about what to use than actually creating. It's frustrating and it can really slow down your process. If you're feeling overwhelmed by your collection, it might be time to pare down and focus on a few favorite tools, a few favorite mediums, instead of trying to use everything, especially all at once. Now here's something I learned the hard way. Art supplies don't last forever. Over time, paints dry out, markers lose their ink, and adhesives solidify. I can't tell you how many times I've reached for a tube of paint, a marker, a gel pen, only to find it rock solid or completely dried out. It's not just frustrating, it's wasteful. If you're not using all your supplies regularly, you might find that a lot of them go bad even before you've had a chance to use them. Even with regular inventory checks to try to use what I have before it goes to waste, if I'm off a certain medium for several years, those supplies are just destined for the trash. Let's talk about the financial side of things. Art supplies aren't cheap, and building a large collection can take a serious toll on your wallet. I've spent more money than I would like to admit on specialty papers, high-end paints, fancy brushes, and let's not forget all the little extras like storage containers, sealants, and cleaning tools. It all adds up quickly, and before you know it, you've spent a small fortune. If you're on a budget, it's important to plan your purchases carefully and avoid getting caught up in all the latest trends and tools. Let's let's be honest, sometimes it's easier to get that dopamine hit from shopping rather than the healthy way of sitting down to make some art. It's like, oh look, a new set of watercolors. I'll bet they'll really inspire me. Spoiler, they probably won't. And in fact, the growing pile of unused supplies could make you feel guilty and even less motivated. In reality, you're putting off the creative work, waiting for a perfect moment that never comes. And let's be real, there's no magic paintbrush that'll suddenly make creating easier. What makes great art is the creating, not the acquiring. Another thing to consider is the environmental impact of owning so many supplies. Unfortunately, not everything is recyclable, and a lot of art supplies come with a significant carbon footprint. Tossing out expired materials or constantly buying new ones can contribute to environmental waste. A lot of supplies that I own were given to me by my mother, who built up her own personal supply of materials throughout her career as an art teacher. And I've paid it forward by rescuing a lot of my art supplies from the landfill by donating ones I don't need through my local Buy Nothing Facebook group. But it's something that every artist should think about, especially if you are concerned about sustainability. One of the downsides of having a lot of supplies is that they're more prone to damage. If you're not careful, improper storage can lead to issues like humidity affecting your papers or pests getting into your natural materials. I once lost an entire stack of beautiful, expensive paper in a damp basement because I didn't store it properly. Now I keep everything sealed tight and check on my supplies regularly. If you're not storing your materials correctly, you could be in for a nasty surprise down the line. Finally, and perhaps most surprisingly, having too many supplies can sometimes hinder your creativity rather than enhance it. With so many options, it's easy to feel scattered and unfocused. Instead of diving into your project with a clear vision, you might find yourself jumping from one idea to the next, trying to use as many different tools and materials as possible. I've learned that sometimes less is more. Recently, while away on vacation, I just took my small folder of scrap collage papers and forced myself to use only them to finish 4 or 5 little pieces. By focusing on a few key supplies, I can create more cohesive, meaningful work rather than getting lost in the chaos of too many options. Despite all these challenges, there's nothing quite like the feeling of having exactly what you need when inspiration strikes. Having a well-stocked supply collection means I'm always ready to create, whether it's a quick sketch or a full-blown project. It's also incredibly satisfying to see a piece come together from start to finish with tools and materials you've carefully chosen from your own supplies. And let's be real, there's something magical about unboxing those beautiful, crisp new supplies. So while art supplies can be messy, expensive, and sometimes overwhelming, they also bring a lot of joy and satisfaction. Whether you're just starting out or you've been building your collection for years, the key is to find a balance that works for you. And remember, creativity isn't about having the most supplies. It's about making the most of what you do have and start developing your own unique style, like I learned to do, and you can see how by watching this next video.